everybody? This is Jake Stenziano, host of Wheelbarrow Props Podcast, here with my co-host of Multifamily Mentor, the coach, chef, father, six, the best-selling author, the G-Daddy, button up his shirt, Gino Barbaro. Gino, how's it going?
Mr. Stenziano, I'm doing good, bro. How you doing?
Always making it happen, big man. And before we get into this today, I'm plugging the event. It's going to be big. We got big things going down. G-Dad, are you ready for this? October 6th and 7th, Nashville. It's not just a destination for Jake and Gino. It's a destination city. Isn't that right?
It is. It's a crazy city for the real estate market, but more importantly, you got Bruno Mars playing that night. Ed Sheeran's playing that weekend.
And they're all there just to see Jake and Gino.
Dude, I wish. It'd be great, right? So it's going to be a great weekend. Buy right, manage right, finance right. We're going to have some great speakers. Jay Scott's there, Kim Taylor. We've got, all the doers there. All the guys who've been on our podcast are going to be there. So I think it's going to be a great time.
No doubt. October 6th and 7th, Nashville. Got a few tickets left. Check us out on jakeandgino.com. Today's guest is Michael Blanc. Like Gino, Mr. Mike worked in the pizza business. He signed up with a high-end pizza franchise back in 2006, but as many people went through, the recession resulted in some hefty losses, and he had to get out. I think that was a blessing because in 2007, Michael launched his apartment investing career and never looked back. He's now passionate about being an entrepreneur and helping others become better entrepreneurs. He focuses on buying apartment buildings by raising money from private individuals. So our good friend, Michael, without further ado, welcome back. How are you doing, sir?
Hey, man. It's great to be back. Thanks for having me.
Hey, it's our pleasure. And I just, I know we catch up from time to time, but I want, you to, talk to the folks. Since the last time you've been on the show, you've done some really great things. You've really grown your business in many different ways. Why don't you just share a little bit about what you've been doing over the last year and how you've grown?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is probably our deal desk, right, where we allow people to bring us deals and we raise money for them. So over the last 18 months since we launched it, we've done 7 deals totaling 860-some units. And really, discovered the art of partnering with people. And so I think partnerships, if done right, allow you to accelerate your goals and scale the business a lot faster. So rather than us sourcing our own deals, which we could have done, we taught others to do it. Rather than others trying to say, no, I can't do 100 unit, empowering them to give the confidence to go after 100 unit if we can raise the money. So it goes both ways, and it's really worked out well. We've also started bringing in money raisers, and again, a different form of partnerships to help us raise money. So in addition to going out to our own investors, we have general partners. All they do all day is raise money, and they bring their investors into the partnership. So the idea of partnering to scale is something that's kind of been, I'd say, relatively new over the last year or two.
Where did you get the idea for that?
It's a collective thing, Gino, and we were kind of all involved in this. There's a group of us who are talking about these things, and I would say, I don't know if any one person ever gets an idea. Someone says, why do we do this? That sounds good. How do we structure that? How do we do that? And I don't know. I think there's something that's said about the collective consciousness, because even though we were talking about that, independently of that, there were people going through your program, my program, other people's programs, and they gravitated towards not so much, analyzing deals, cold calling broker. They gravitate towards the money raising side naturally. And so they said, at first they thought they were the redheaded stepchild, and they're like, oh, I don't like Excel spreadsheets. I'm not good for this business. And upon closer examination, well, what are you good at? Oh, I'm really good at relationships. And my gosh, I already have money committed from people, and I love talking to people. They're like, well, why don't you keep talking to people? All right. You leave the Excel work to somebody else, and you just keep talking to people. And so there was a home for people like that.
Mm-hmm. It's really interesting because Gina and I have been talking about this stuff a lot lately. You may have your money raiser, you may have your operator, you may have your deal finder, and it's really just kind of, if you want to be in the game, find what you're good at and do it, because there's so many different ways to get involved in real estate and actually do something that you enjoy doing. And it's funny because Gino and I, his brother is, looking to kind of step into the business at some time. And Gino, based on what he was just saying, money raiser all day, right? A relationship guy, not into the Excel spreadsheets. Marco would crush it on the money raising. And he already has, he set up an event with like 50 people the other night for us. We went and spoke about it. So it's just some people are the honeybee, some people are the operator, some, maybe the data guy, whatever it is. Get in the game, find what you like, and find people out there you can partner with, because you're going to go a lot further, bringing people along with you than trying to do it by yourself.
I agree. Michael, I have to ask a question. How do you approach students or potential students and let them know that they really don't know how to underwrite a deal and they have to come to you to learn how to underwrite a deal? Because I've got a lot of operating memorandums sent to me and I'm like, this is a deal. Well, not really. Tell me why it's a deal.
It's an offering.
Yes.
Well, I mean, a lot of times it comes with a lot of times they recognize they're not good at analyzing deals or don't have any confidence in analyzing deals. And other times it's, they submit a deal, and it's not a deal. And they go, oh, I thought it was a deal. Why did you think it was a deal? Well, X, Y, Z. And then they quickly, to me, analyzing is a critical skill that people have to learn that. And of course, the art of raising money. But from a skill perspective, the analysis piece is core because it's a foundation for everything, because everything else flows from that. For example, using the right language comes from analyzing a deal, and therefore confidence. And you obviously need it to make offers. You need it to make projections for your investors, right? So the analysis piece sits at the core of all that. And if you're not confident that, you really can't do anything else. And even as a money raiser, you do have to get somehow good at analysis. You don't have to get into the weeds like a syndicator sometimes does, but you have to be educated enough so you appear confident, educated to your investors because they're investing with you. Mm-hmm. So you still have to educate yourself. It's not like you get a free pass. I don't have to know about multifamily or whatever I'm raising money for. You still have to be educated about it, but your focus lies elsewhere.
That's the foundation, right? That education is the foundation. You can build from there, but you got to get that foundation in place.
Yeah, you do. You got to get on the same page for sure. Yeah. And then you and some people specialize, some people do it all, right? And so it really depends on what your strength is.
So when we were on the show last time, cap rates were different, cash on cash return were different, the market was completely different. You were probably investing in different markets. What markets are you looking at right now, and what types of cap rates returns are you guys aiming for?
So the returns really are driven by what the investors want or they say they want, right? And so this has been changing because it's been challenging, as you know, over the last 2 or 3 years to acquire properties. And I think investors have been spoiled with 20% average annual returns. Mm-hmm. And so what happened in the beginning, as we got the returns started getting a little lower, 15% is still daggone good. I just want to say, investors were like, oh no, I'm good. I'll wait for the next one. And the next one came and it still wasn't 20%. They're like, oh gosh, maybe I should revise my expectations a little bit. So over the last 2 or 3 years, investors' expectations have been, I say, collectively lowered. But really, it's been driven by investors' expectations. And as we look for nicer properties, maybe Class B, we're finding the returns are about 2% lower. So instead of a 15% average annual return, maybe it's 13%. Instead of a 10% cash on cash, maybe it's an 8%. So lower returns, but much nicer assets, much stabler, less risky, that kind of thing. So we're exploring that as well.
So as far as markets, what kind of markets are you guys looking into?
So we're really looking into wherever the deals are. So we have a pretty wide net with the deal desk, and it's essentially wherever people decide to look. Now, obviously, there's areas that we're looking for, cities with at least 300,000 people who live there, so nothing really rural. And we're looking for an intersection of growth. So there's a growth forecast, and also there's a potential for yield. So while, let's say, San Francisco might be growing like crazy, there's no yield there. So as a result, most people would not be looking in San Francisco. But really, we're open to almost anywhere people are looking, and it's it tends to be in cities like, let's go from Oklahoma City, Indianapolis, cities in Ohio, Cleveland, Columbus. Jacksonville, Florida. Some cities in Florida is still growing. Atlanta is still pretty hot right now. Texas now is hot. Used to be a place where we still find deals. Is no longer the case. Alabama, we're now in Huntsville, and we're in Birmingham now. We're in Memphis, and you guys are in Tennessee, Kentucky. So some of these, I guess. Off the grid markets that aren't super hot, but are still showing really, really strong growth. and it's just not super hot yet. Having said that, it's still challenging to find deals, but that's where we see most of the activity.
When you started the Deal Dogs, and I'm sure a lot of people on this call are going to say, wow, that's a great idea. What were one of the two of the big mistakes that you made starting this whole process off?
It's like one of those things when you look at some of your first deals, knowing what you know now, you probably wouldn't do them again. But on the other hand,
that's the learning curve, man.
Ignorance, because you didn't know what you didn't know, you decided to go forward anyway. And sometimes knowing what you now know, you maybe would have said, oh, I already know what's going to happen with that, so I'm not going to do it. And that's obviously a mistake, right? And almost everybody I've talked to has made some mistakes, especially early on. Sometimes they didn't even make money. Sometimes they even lost money, but they got into that first deal. And the value of that first deal, as I write in my book, is so enormous.
No doubt.
The value of the first deal outweighs any money you could possibly make. It outweighs any money you would have lost as well. So it's really difficult to say what the mistakes were. There were, of course, numerous, one of which was, picking the wrong property manager, which is a complete nightmare, and then having you extricate yourself out of that. And so that's certainly, another one would be not raising enough money or not having enough money. So when one of your tenants goes AWOL and starts suing you every 6 weeks and this, that, and the other thing happens, the worst thing that can happen is that you run out of money. So we're very sensitive when we raise money that we have, I would say, almost like an excessive amount of reserves in there, because you just don't know what's going to happen. And if you run out of money, you could potentially lose an otherwise good property because you can't overcome, let's say, a sewer backup because there's no money left in the deal. And so now your tenants move out and now you lose income. And before you know it, you're in this downward spiral. So see that as well.
I like that. Michael, when guys bring you deals, how do you structure it as far as paying them? Do they get part of the GP, or how does that work?
Yeah, we have a kind of a methodology where we split the general partnership based on what role someone plays and what they bring to the table. So, for example, there's a role someone who finds a deal. That's a role. Or someone who puts up the deposit money or funds the due diligence, for example. Pays for the attorney or all that kind of stuff, due diligence. So there's a function for that. Then there's someone who guarantees or co-guarantees the loan. That's a function for that. Then there's the party or parties who raise the money. Then there's a party or parties who then manage the asset after closing. So these are all different roles you have, and we assign kind of weightings to each of those. And then and those are obviously flexible, negotiable. And then within each, everybody has a role. So let's say a student brings the deal. Well, they found the deal, so they get 100% of the deal finding bucket. And so you can create the spreadsheet, and then when you go through each of the ones, this one, let's say you raise half, I raise half. Well, then you split the money raising bucket. And so you go through this stuff, and out drops a split at the bottom. And you look at it and go, oh, that looks good. Or you might look at it and go, that's a little rich, or that's not really reasonable, and you tweak with it. But that's the methodology we go about. And so as a result, we can structure fairly complicated partnerships where everyone's role is fairly well defined, where everybody's clear about what they're doing in that partnership.
What is pain points do you have in multifamily? Have you witnessed over the last 3 years owning properties?
Yeah, I mean, pain point is there's several. I think if you're classifying from the acquisition and the asset management, the acquisition is painful because I want to help people do their first deal. That's my entire mission, and I talk about that in the book. And that is sometimes at odds with not doing a deal. And so and we go through this from time to time. We had one last week that was very painful, and I probably should have said no 6 weeks ago, and I didn't. I was secretly hoping the deal would go away. I never really liked the deal. Kept on going until like the day of the deposit was going to go hard, and I was like, crap, I gotta, either we're moving forward with this or we're not. And it was a painful no, because at that point, everyone's so emotionally invested in a deal that the extraction process is very painful. And I think the lesson there is you really got to be clear about what you like and what you don't like. And you got to listen to your gut a little bit, and you probably got to say no earlier on. So on the acquisition side, that's something, especially as a new person who's never done a deal before, they have happy ears. Happy ears are, I want to do a deal, right? Because I talk about the law of the first deal. Well, I want to get into the law of the first deal. So I'm going to do my first deal, but maybe it's not the best first deal to do. So they're at odds with each other. So that's on the acquisition side. On the asset, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just asking, what was wrong with that deal? What didn't you like about that deal that you dragged on and dragged on and dragged on? What looked bad? What were the red flags for that deal?
Yeah, it was a combination of things. Number one, it was the strategy was, first of all, there were several things wrong. There was a seller who was terminally ill who basically wanted a 30-day close in return for a significant discount. So, we're not set up for
challenging on a big deal, right? Yeah.
We're not set up for a
deal.
fast close. So we're using hard money loans, and I thought I got out of that from the house flipping side of things. And you use hard money loans from lenders we have never dealt with before. Timelines are very, very fast, and the equity had to be raised in the same timeline. Well, we have, a 30-day timeline where we raise our equity. We rev up the engine. We have our presentation. We have a webinar. We have, it's a process. It takes 30 days. It doesn't take 7 days. So how do we do that? Then the strategy was moving it from market to Section 8. Normally it's the other way around. And I'm like, I've had Section 8, and I understand sometimes it's the way to go, but I didn't really like it. Right. So I didn't like that. And then of course, the nail in the coffin was that discovered violent crime. Literally last day of the deposit went hard. And as you guys know, violent crime is an issue, and for getting into agency debt. And they're just funny about it. And it really, there's no specific rule of what the underwriter, how they're going to treat that violent crime. And we had a deal where the violent crime was 3 years ago, long before the renovation of this particular building, and it really created a problem. And other people have issues with that as well. So the uncertainty of going from a bridge to agency debt because of that was very uncertain, and I didn't like that. So one of those things, I maybe I could have lived with it. I'm not exactly sure, but put them all together, you're like, now and
you're reaching too far on that one. Yeah.
What's that? Yeah,
going too far.
We should have maybe called it before then, because like I said, there was too much emotional detachment going on, and it was painful.
So what happened to this deal? Do you track your deals still? You put them in a lead tracker and see what's going on with them? Because I think 30 days from now, if it hasn't closed, it's going to be even more of a significant discount to the point where it might be tasteful to jump back in.
Not on that one, just because of the things that bothered me. It wasn't really priced. Mm-hmm. The returns actually were great. I mean, literally, they were like 21%, and they were great. It was everything else around it that bothered me about the deal there.
Mm-hmm. So the acquisition pain points. Let's move on to the operational or the other pain points.
The operational points is around property management, and sometimes if you have a good property manager, it is fantastic. And when you have a not so good property manager, it's varying degrees of less fantastic, really depending on the property manager. Now, you guys, manage your own properties, which is great. I think that's something that one should consider, once someone gets some kind of scale, and something that we're certainly looking at, though we're more geographically spread out through the country. So it really is a matter of finding and keeping the right managers. I think that's it. Once you have that person in place, things are really, really easy. And if not, you just find yourself, chasing them for stuff. They're not really getting a job done. And that's really where being in a little more rural areas is the challenge, because it's not like you have 5 other property managers in town. You might have one person, and that's it.
Mm-hmm. What do you look for in a property management company?
I mean, it's really a combination of things. It's the reporting, the completeness of the reporting is very important to us now. If you're managing one property, you can probably live with, but if you're managing, 1,000 units, you need a high degree of visibility. We really like real-time insight into reporting. So that's really the systems they use. Then obviously the scale of their operation. There's got to be a fit between the kind of building that you have and what the property manager is managing. So if you have a 12 unit, no one that's managing 100 plus units is going to manage it, and vice versa. So on the other hand, if you have student housing, that's a specialty. If you have Section 8 housing, that's a specialty. So you got to find a property manager that specializes in those kinds of assets. And then, for example, how they communicate. How are they in the communication? Do they respond quickly? Do they drag their feet? How are they to work with kind of up front? So those are some of the things that we look for. And then, you check references, obviously, and you do the best you can, but you really don't know how someone does until you get into it sometimes. Mm-hmm. And I think the next step there is to really watch them carefully, and then, make an adjustment if you have to.
So I've beaten you up with the pain points. What do you love about multifamily? Because there's a lot of guys in the show that listen to it. They're in single family homes. They want to scale, but they say this is not for me, not for me. What are the great points that you love about multifamily?
Well, you're talking about a former single family house investor, right? So, which was pretty good. Actually, I made pretty good money with it also. But there are disadvantages of single family house investing that are essentially fixed by multifamily. So in no particular order, single family house investing, while we made good money, was actually a lot of work. And don't get me wrong, I read all the books, right? So it's I had my teams in place and we were buying, homes without necessarily seeing them. But still, there's always something going on. There's a contractor doesn't show up, contractor flakes out. We don't estimate the scope of work properly. Then we discover a water problem. So there's always problems going on. It's a very active job. And the worst is, once you sell the house, there's no residual income from that. It's gone. You've just cut yourself. You've removed the source of income. Now, the solution to that is to do buy and hold rentals. And that's great also. But again, very active. And most people tend to manage their houses themselves until they get to a certain size. Well, the other thing I didn't like, I was too dependent on the market. So especially during the recession, the value of a house is driven by the value of all the houses around, right? And it doesn't matter if my rental produces $1,000 in rent and the other guy, no, it's not even a rental, doesn't produce any income at all. The value is going to be right around the same. And with multifamily, you don't have that, right? You have a box and it could be worth $1 million and the one next to it is worth 1.3 because the one that's worth 1.3 produces more income. So I could buy the $1 million box, make it kick out more money, and then I could refinance at a higher valuation or even sell. So I could control the value of the building. And I guess most importantly to me is I was able to achieve what I was seeking, which is financial freedom, because it's the passive nature of the investing is built into the business model through property managers, right? With single family houses, it's kind of an unnatural act to have a property manager. And with multifamily, it's a little bit of an unnatural act not to have a property manager. So I like that. What I also like is I can start small, and most people do, and then they scale up, and each deal they do is successively larger, and it happens successively faster in deal. I call it the kind of the law of the first deal. Once you do your first deal, the second and third one kind of just happen like really, really quickly. So I like the ability to scale, and most people within 3 deals have replaced their living expenses. So the path from where I am now, I have a W-2 job or what else, to actually getting to what I want, that path could be 1 to 3 years with multifamily. And that's what really excites me about it.
I know one of your strengths is raising money from investors. Can you give the listeners a couple of tips about how to raise large sums of money for your deals?
Yeah, I mean, it all starts with intentional relationships, right? So it's all about having conversations with people, building relationships, and fundamentally in sharing your enthusiasm with other people around you. You're not going to believe I was getting into this apartment building thing. I'm really excited. And, I got these investors at a minimum investment of $50,000. We're getting them a 13, 14% average annual return. And, and if the person shows interest in that, then you say, well, would you happen to know someone? And they're like, well, my boss might be interested in talking with you. Or they might say, well, I might be interested in talking with you. And so you just build these, you share your enthusiasm, you see how people are interested if they're asking questions. You might schedule a meeting with them, and then we use something that I call a sample deal package, where you basically make up a deal. It's a real deal. It's got real photos, got real projections. The only thing that's not real about it is that you don't actually have it under contract. Now, you tell the investor this, but it's a conversation piece. Hey, look, this is the kind of deal that I'm looking to do. Why don't we look at it? If it were real, you ask me questions, and they'll ask you big questions like, well, why should I invest in multifamily? Well, why should I invest with you? And these questions might take a day to answer, and it might take weeks to answer. These are big questions to answer. But you need to answer those to get that person comfortable with the whole idea of investing with you. And once they do, what you're really looking for is a verbal commitment. Hey, if I get you a deal that looks substantially like this, would you be in for $50,000? Yes, I would. I said, great. I'll keep you posted. And so what happens is you want to get these verbal commitments from people. And let's say you got five people who are interested for $50,000. Well, now you have $250,000 behind you. There's no guarantee that you have that, but you feel pretty good about it. So now I'm much more confident in putting a contract on $1 million, 10 unit, 15 unit property, because I have these 5 people behind me. Versus what some people do, and I applaud them, is to basically just go get a deal, put it on a contract, and then go raise the money. And some people that I've interviewed in my podcast have done that. I'm like, holy cow, you're crazy. Like that would create way too much stress for me. So what we teach people is to start raising money literally in parallel. It's like on day one. After you get your education, so you don't sound like an idiot, start the money raising process, which really is intentionally building and developing relationships.
I love that. That's a great idea. Create those substantive relationships today, because you never know when you're going to need the money tomorrow, right? That's great. What was the inspiration for the book?
It's really the core of my message, right? Which is because I shared with you why I'm so excited about multifamily. And I've done so many things, as you guys know. I've done software, I've done restaurants, I've flipped houses, I've landlord, I've wholesaled. I traded stocks and options for a little while also. So I've done all these different things, and some things worked, but they didn't have that passive thing that I'm talking about here. There wasn't that permanent financial freedom aspect of it. And some things didn't work and they lost money, like the restaurants. And so I'm looking at all these things going, my gosh, I've achieved certain financial freedom. I was financially free a couple times. It didn't last, but this time it did. And looking at all that over the last 15 years, and I really like the blueprint to financial freedom with multifamily. And though as excited as I am about that, when I mention it, people are like, oh, apartment buildings. You get that, whoa, yeah, I heard of that. I heard of this. It's a really advanced strategy. Let me flip houses for 5 or 10 years, or let me do some rentals for 5 or 10 years, and I'll take that experience and the money I make, and I'll roll that into apartment buildings one day. And if you notice, the title of my book is Financial Freedom with Real Estate Investing. It doesn't say anything about apartment buildings. And I do that on purpose because of this very reaction. And now I address this in the book because there's two major objections that people have. All right, Michael, I don't have the experience, so I'm going to get it first. Oh, Michael, I don't have the money, so let me save some first. Okay, and both of those things stop people dead in their tracks of multifamily. And I address those in the book about how it's actually quite easy to overcome both of those things so that you can skip to single family house investing if you want. I'm not knocking single family house investing. So all you guys listening out there, I get it. It's cool. But if you want to accelerate your progress, you can overcome those two very, very quickly. So that's kind of my core message. And I'm kind of an actionable guy. So I break down how you actually do your first deal, because it's all about the first deal. The interesting phenomenon is once people do your first deal, the second and third just happen automatically within like weeks or months of the first one. And that's really exciting because now I can whittle down the elusive goal of financial freedom after 300 units down to a single thing, which is your first deal. So if I can help people, you can help people do their first deal, the second and third will basically happen automatically. So we can now take that complex thing and just boil it down to one thing, which is how can you do your first deal, even if it's only a duplex? So it's essentially my message and the blueprint kind of in one together.
I love that because I get that pushback every day, Michael. I hear people say, I need to save money and I need to wait for market correction. And I just go back to them. I say, no, you need to get educated today. So know when that correction happens 18 months from now, you can witness it and you can start raising money and create your base or your power base of investors today. So you'll be ready for it. So all the listeners out there, the market's high right now. We understand that, but we're not saying maybe you ought to buy an asset now, but prepare yourself for the impending little storm. It's not going to be a 2008, but we're going to get a correction sooner or later. So get the book, read Michael's book, read the information, learn how to raise money. So when it occurs, you at least understand, you can diagnose and say, wow, cap rates are rising now. Interest rates are going up. There's deals that are coming out. You can at least identify it and be ready to capture it. Don't you think that's how people should, go ahead and proceed?
Yeah, the truth is there's never really a good time to get into the market if you really look at it now. In hindsight, 2008 would have been a perfect time to get in, but everyone was so afraid, no one was buying. Everybody was selling. So again, not a great time because who knows where the bottom is. And so you're absolutely right that the day to take action is right now. Educate yourself and get started right now. And there's people still doing deals right now. You guys are doing deals. We're doing deals. The difference is the people who are doing deals are actually prepared to hustle for it, right? The people that aren't doing deals are the ones that make an offer, that doesn't accept it, and they kind of say, oh, see, it doesn't work for me. But the people who are doing deals, what they don't talk about often is how many actually offers they make, right? How many deals they look at to get that one offer. Everybody says, oh, you got lucky. Well, maybe they did, but really it was a lot of hustle. So the people who are actually doing deals are hustling. And that they're literally, it doesn't really matter how much money you have and how much money you don't have. Like literally, the result is exactly the same. Those guys that are hustling, whether they have money or not, are doing deals. And everyone else that's expecting the deal to fall in their lap are not doing deals. And then they conclude that, oh, the market's too hot. Well, the market might be a little hot, okay? Might be a little hotter than maybe average, but people are still doing deals. And so the advantage is if someone gets started right now, yes, okay, they won't maybe crush it in the next 30 days, but they will probably do a deal in the next 12 months. And that's a good thing. And if we do get a market correction, now they're ready to go. They have some money behind them. They have experience. They can recognize that, my gosh, this is actually a good deal, and they can move quickly on it. So either way, it's a great time to get started.
I agree. Before we get to the short answer question, what is your best real estate investing tip for the listeners out there?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's to get started, right? But I think it's more fundamental than that. I think I want people to really be clear about what they want in life. And I think a lot of people in their mind, they're sitting in their cubicle and they're like, I want to get out of this stuff. I know the solution is to be a real estate investor. And so what they do is they get into real estate investing. And typically when you go to your RIA meetings, it's single family house investing, because that's what everybody does and teaches around you. And let's say they're actually successful with that investing. They realize after a while, after 5 years, I can't get there from here. I'd have to buy too many rentals to actually quit my job. And even if I did that, it's going to be way too much work. So the goal, really what you want is financial freedom. You don't necessarily need to be a real estate investor, okay? There's a distinction, and a lot of people are confused by this, which is why I gravitate, or I encourage people to look at multifamily for that same reason.
Michael, what would you say your best habit for success is?
So a couple of years ago, I read the best habit for success. I read The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod. I've been struggling kind of doing a morning routine, and I started implementing that. So, an hour each morning, and I had to get up an hour earlier, which I didn't particularly like. And so I think that's really made a fundamental difference, because it really centers you. It allows you to practice things like gratitude. When we don't have a great day, and it happens sometimes, you're like, oh my gosh, I just had a terrible day. And so there's so much you're actually grateful for if you really look at it. Like things may really, discourage you. So gratitude, things like strategic planning is fundamental as, hey, what are the 3 things I really need to do today for today to be, a productive day? What are the 3 things I need to be doing this month? And taking some time to do strategic thinking and having some quiet time. So that's probably the relatively, over the last 2 years, probably the newest thing I've done that has made the biggest difference.
So how do you actually practice gratitude? Because I think that's one that I struggle with personally, and I've adopted a lot of the other resources. What is like a practical example of how you do that?
I mean, especially if you were, if you had the day before, just something happened, something bad happened, and they're normally like what I call white collar problems, right? Oh gosh, woe me, I just lost some money, or I lost this deal, or someone, whatever. It really is when you list all the things that you actually have that you're grateful for. The list is actually really long, but it's really fundamental. Like, oh my gosh, I have a house. Okay, some people in Africa don't have a house. I actually have more than one pair of shoes. Some people don't have any shoes at all. I have my health, right? And that's a big one for me, because every once in a while when someone gets sick or develops a brain tumor at age 34, you're like, how did this happen? Like, this came out of nowhere. One day they're fine, next day they're in the hospital, and then the day after that they're like, in critical condition. Like, how does that happen? And so when you focus on these things that and frankly, we all take this for granted. We take almost everything for granted. And if we stop taking things for granted and we make this long list, it could be like 20 things. You're like, oh my gosh, what is my problem today? Right? I got so many things to be grateful for, and it puts everything else in perspective. So I don't know, that's worked for me a little bit.
Mr. Stenziano, all you gotta do is just turn on the TV and see all the problems around the world and say, I'm having a pretty good day here. I mean, that's basically what it comes down to. Go to a hospital, go see people who are sick in the hospital, go to a children's ward, and really, that'll really hit you. And you say, wow, that really sucks. I mean, I'm here, I'm healthy, I've got a mission to do, and it should fuel you even more to do what you're supposed to be here on this planet to do. Maybe to help others or to grow a family, whatever. So that would be my suggestion.
Very well said, G-Dad. I appreciate the insight there, man.
You ask, I answer, bro.
Last question for you. What is your, favorite, or what is the value add strategy that you tend to implement the most that you really enjoy doing that gets you big bang for your buck?
It's the same thing that everybody really tries to do, and that's a value add deal. And not because we love doing the value add deal. Value deal means like I'm taking the $1 million box and I'm turning it into $1.3 million box that we talked about earlier. It's not so much that we love the value add deal. We'd rather find an undervalued. We'd rather buy at a discount like we do on the house flipping side and not have to do anything. But obviously those are very
specific strategy though. Is it rubs? Is it dog parks? What do you love going in and doing that you've seen the best bang for your buck doing?
I don't know if I want to be that specific. What I really look for and I'm very specific on is I really want to understand the problem with a property. So if rents are whatever low or the vacancy is high, I want to know why, right? Because it could be the market. But I can't fix the market. We did a 321 unit deal late last year. And it was a combination of things that we felt are really easy to fix. So the rents were literally like the next door, the rents were literally like $75 under. Then there was another $50 that were under compared to the one a mile away that was all fixed up and pretty. And they were all full. On this one, it was 68% occupied. Well, why is that? It was clearly the management of that thing was completely and utterly mismanaged because the market supported higher rents and a higher occupancy. And sure enough, after 3 months, we were at 90% occupancy because it was a very, very clear problem. On the other hand, if it's not that clear, I really am very nervous about it. Same thing on the house flipping side. If I wasn't clear about the after repair value, I learned that I should probably walk from that deal. There's something about it. I couldn't put my finger on it. Every time I ignored my gut, the house sold for $30,000 less than we thought it would. It's the same thing on the apartment building side. The business plan has to be very, very clear. It just has to be crystal clear.
Very good. So we talked about the book a little bit earlier. Where's the best place for people to go to pick up their copy, and where should they go for that?
So it's on Amazon, and it's called Financial Freedom with Real Estate Investing.
There it is for the folks on YouTube.
Yeah, Financial Freedom with Real Estate Investing. Just Google that. It's a bright yellow cover, and should be easy to find. So. Hopefully it will rattle people and shift their minds about what they think they know about apartment building investing and encourage more people to join us.
No doubt. G-Dad, anything else today?
Just want to thank Michael for coming on. He's an inspiration to a lot of guys, especially us pizza guys, right, Jake? The restaurant business is nothing with multifamily. Multifamily, you can scale. Restaurants, you can scale, but it's a different kind of animal. I wish I'd known that 10 years ago. I'd be the Papa John's of pizzerias, but thank God I didn't, because I'd still be in the restaurant business. So
you don't want to be Papa John right now, my friend. Listen, here's my 2 cents on pizza. Eat it, don't sell it. All right?
Make a good one too. So Mike, I really want to thank you for coming on, sharing your story with us. Guys, get out there, grab a copy of his book. He's doing the real thing. He's actually got financial freedom. He's teaching guys how to get into their first deal, and that's the most important thing. So just wanted to say thanks, Mike.
Hey, appreciate it. Thanks again for having me on the show.
Thanks, guys.
Take care, guys.